I didn't know that I was privileged until I was about 12 years old. I grew up during the war, and we were moved from one place in the country to another to avoid the bombs and the rockets that came over from Germany. And so it was only when I was 12 years old that I was faced with this realization that I was privileged, and it came about this way. My family had moved to the country, and we lived in a large manor house in a small village, and there weren't very many children my age around, but we had a cook, and she had a daughter who was a little older than me, and she was called Joy, and she and I would play together in the garden. We'd go out and do things together. So one day I called up the stairs to their wing of the house and said, Joy, can you come out and play with me? And she said, I've just got to sweep the stairs. I said, no problem. I'll get a dustpan and broom and sweep up from the bottom, and you sweep down from the top. We'll meet halfway in half the time. So I was sweeping the stairs from the bottom when our nanny, I'm the oldest of 7, so there were younger children, and for them we had a nanny. And the nanny came by, and she saw what I was doing and said, I'm going to report you to your mother. So I then had to go down to the study and knock on the study door, and my mother said, come in. And she proceeded to tell me that it was not my place to sweep the stairs. And at that moment, something just cut right through me, and I thought, I'm never going to be part of this class system again. In England, it was class, not race. And I was just so clear that that was a system I didn't want to have any part of, and I didn't like it, and I would do everything I could to get away from it. Well, you can't actually get away from the fact. I can't get away from the fact that I was born with white skin, that I was born with parents who were educated, I was born with parents who provided health for me. I can't avoid that. It lives with me, has lived with me for 86 years. And so when I went on my sabbatical in 2001 to South Africa, I had gone not knowing exactly, well, I knew where I was going, but I'd never been there. I didn't know anybody there. But I knew that I wanted to work with women and children with AIDS and HIV infections in Africa. And I was invited to come to the Tabong community, of which Sister Sheila was a part. And the Tabong community was a little enclave that had been built by the Dominican sisters in the area of these huge informal settlements where people had built anything they could to shelter themselves, bits of plywood, bits of chicken wire, bits of sacking, anything that they could just to house themselves, and it was huge at this point. Originally it had been founded because the men had come to work in the gold mines, but the gold mines were shut now. And so the people, mostly women, because the men had gone off to see if they could find work elsewhere, huddled in these really desperate situations. And I would go out with one of the sisters, Nobulali, one of the African sisters, who was giving seeds to the women to plant in their gardens to see if they could grow some vegetables for food for their families. And I was so aware of the fact that I was so privileged, and I was visiting these women who were incredibly gracious and had great dignity, and would offer me a milk crate to sit on, and then would ask a child to run off and get something from a neighbor that I could drink in a little jam jar. The hospitality they gave me was extraordinary. They had nothing. And I was this privileged person. How dared I? How dared I visit them even? How dared I be there? And this was something I wrestled with and came back to the sisters with and talked to them about. And it was Sister Sheila who told me this: our privilege is our resource for service, bearing witness in our fractured world of scarcity and violence. I'm going to repeat it because it's meant so much to me. Our privilege is our resource for service, bearing witness in our fractured world of scarcity and violence. That didn't take away my privilege. It didn't take away my embarrassment in the face of these people who have so very little. But it helped me go out again the next day and visit somebody. It helped me live with something I can never get rid of, which is my privilege.